Hey Doc, I am back with another guest after a long hiatus, but I am so happy to have her here. She is Dr. Gina Dapul, and she is a board certified allergist, not just an adult allergist, but a pediatric allergist. And she's also a CEO of her own practice. And most importantly, she is a mom just like you. And I am so excited to have her here with us. Welcome, Dr. Gina.
Thank you, Dr. Toya. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Yes, wonderful. So I want to get right into your story. Tell me how long you've been married and how many kids you have.
Okay, so I have been married 17 plus years at the time of
Wow.
this recording. Yes, but I've actually known my husband for 25 years because we had met. I was in undergrad and he was in his first assignment in Boston, and we had dated and then, got engaged for 8 years before we got married. So I always say, look, 25 years because 17 doesn't really capture the whole entire thing.
Wow. Okay, wait, hold on. What he was on assignment? Was he in the military?
He was in the military,
Oh,
yes.
what
So former
branch?
Air Force. Air Force.
My husband too. Oh, wow.
Didn't even know that. Fabulous. So,
Okay,
yes.
wait. So sorry, I'm so interested already. Why were y'all engaged for 8 years if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, so not engaged, but dating
Oh,
and
okay.
and then engaged. So actually, we were together probably 2 years before I went off to medical school, and we had a 4 year long distance relationship, if you can believe that. And then he separated in order for us to be together again. So by the time I started residency, we were in the same state or
Got it.
vicinity.
Got it. So is
But
it that you were like, I am not getting married to an active duty Air Force person? Is that what happened?
no, it would be that if we weren't in the same vicinity, we had
Yeah.
already done 4 years. And it's like, well, how can you continue this? And during those 4 years, actually, we probably saw each other maybe 2 times a year, once or twice a year, right? Through medical school, through the clinical training. And so it was either like we're going to be together or we just move on. And
Right.
luckily,
Right.
we're still
Well,
together.
good. Okay, wait. So I'm so intrigued by your story. So how did y'all meet?
So let's see. I was an undergrad at the time between my junior and senior year at Boston University. And he's originally from San Diego. So military family, father was Navy, grandparents were Army. And so actually we were just talking about this the other day. The Air Force Base that's in Boston is called Hanscom Air Force Base. And it wasn't even in his top three. So he had graduated, done ROTC, and then he was expecting to go somewhere else. And then he's like, Hanscom, where's this?
Right.
So first assignment was out there. It was outside of Boston, and we had met through mutual friends who had one of them had actually gone to high school with him in San Diego, and she was a few years older than me at BU. And so when she was in town, she was like, "Oh, let's introduce you to my friends." So they had met. We hadn't met until a couple months later, actually on basketball courts, which was really cool because now we eventually will bring our daughters there to see it. But he was playing with my guy friends, and they would all meet together, and I would be there with my other girlfriends. We'd just like chat and talk while they play ball. And then that whole day, my friends were kind of like, "Oh, have you met this guy?" And I was like, "No, I've never heard of him." So yeah, he was impressing me with his moves, and 25 years later, here we are.
Sweet. Okay.
So that's
I
our
love that.
story.
Yeah. I love meet cutes. So when you got married, you had finished training and you were an attending, or how did
Oh, so actually, no, we got married when I was still in residency.
mm,
So, yes, and we know this for being in medicine that there's never a good time for anything.
yeah.
And it was actually, I think I was in, because I did a research year in between my second and third year, but I think I was actually in residency at the time. And, to be able to take off for this,
Right.
I, right, planned the day. And because I was night then, I actually had to call out because they told me, look, we couldn't put your, wedding in at a time. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm calling out. So, yes, we got married while I was in residency. I stayed another 2 years to do my fellowship in my hospital in Brooklyn. And then we moved here to the Washington, D.C. area after fellowship for my first position.
Gotcha. Okay. When did you decide, okay, let's have some kids?
So I want to say it was my first year as an attending because we had just settled in to the DC area. I had my job, he had his position, and in hindsight, it's kind of like, well, maybe we should have tried years ago or,
Yeah.
planned this, but with the way things happen in life and being a woman physician, that was the time where we're like, okay, let's try. And
Yeah.
so it was after being an attending already.
So tell me a little bit more about that. You said you thought maybe you should have tried before.
Yes, it's one of these things where you're not actually told until you try that, the best time to try is in your 20s.
Right, right,
And I'm
right.
like, oh, this is kind of new to me. So
Yeah.
it's one of these things where we put our career, our school, first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that would have been good to keep in mind. So, anytime I do talk to young women physicians, I'm like,
Just like,
sooner rather
don't
than
wait.
later.
Yeah, you're a lot nicer than me. I'm just like, don't wait.
Wait,
Start now.
straight to it.
Do you have a partner? Start. No, that's good advice. So when you start out, like I have a lot of people who say they had in their head they were going to have 2.5 kids or like they have a spreadsheet. What was your plan or what did you all discuss?
I think we both agreed on two.
Okay.
I come up from a family of two. I have another sister, and then he has two other brothers. But I think two was just one of these things. We're like, oh, it's kind of nice and even. So I have two daughters, and they're actually twin girls who are
Well,
now 11 and a half.
yeah, you got bang for your buck, one and, not one and done. Well, yeah, one pregnancy and done. And before I was an OBGYN and I knew the risks of twin pregnancies, I used to want to have twins so bad. I don't know, it was just like this curious thing. And I was just like, yeah, I really want to have twins. And then I went through residency and I was like, oh, no, 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 no. So was your pregnancy okay? Any complications or anything like that?
Oh, so thankfully my pregnancy went well. We actually had seen high risk OB, and this was recommended because I was, having twins. So we would actually travel. I live in Maryland, but we traveled to Washington, D.C. to see, an OB there. And yes, thankfully for the couple months, 9, 10 months, it was
Yeah.
good. One of the things that did happen to me because of our weather here in the area is that while I was driving to work, it was probably 36 weeks at the time, like fully, huge,
Right.
was I somebody had rear-ended me in a snowy day. And
Oh,
so here we are, I got rear-ended, and I remember this clearly because I was on my way to clinic, and I had to pop out of the car with my huge stomach, and the lady's like, oh my gosh, she's pregnant. And, luckily it was just a fender bender in the back, but once I had spoken to my OB at the time, we had to do all the things to make sure, everything was good. But no, thankfully, I can say that pregnancy was good. If there's one thing I can remember too, it's that by the time I got super heavy, which
yeah.
I don't even know how much I weighed by then, I remember going into a swimming pool at our gym
Okay.
and then crying because it was the first time I didn't feel all the weight of my body. And it sounds so weird, but I remember just like bawling in the pool. It was like this gym pool, and just thinking, this is the first time in months where I'm not the one carrying everything. And the water just kind of like allowed me to be therapeutic and be like, okay, look, you've got help, you've got support, like literally.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have so many questions. First of all, when did you actually deliver? Because 36 weeks you were still driving to work.
Oh,
So,
yes.
how many weeks were you when you had these babies?
38.
Wow.
Yes.
Full
So
term
full term for
twins.
twins. Yes. So we were
Good
very,
for
very
you.
fortunate. And
Yeah, that sounds very uncomfortable, but yes,
yeah,
okay.
which is why I do remember by the end there was no sleeping. I had a whole
Right.
pillow fortress that my husband and
Yep.
I called it. We'd put pillows in like different areas of my back and body. And by the end I was like, oh. But yes, so I carried to 38 weeks, and yes, it was just a big
Wow.
waddle of a person.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is amazing. So, tell me, in this pool, you were crying because you couldn't feel the weight. Tell me
Yes.
more about those emotions. Was it relief? Was it that you were upset? Like, tell me more about how you were feeling.
So I want to say I don't remember the first time I got into the pool, um, but it was probably maybe 5 or 6 months into it, and already carrying the weight of the girls was just it was just a lot, right? I'm like a petite kind of person, so I already went from not wearing heels to wearing flats, which I don't wear. And I mind you, I actually worked up until 4 days before I delivered. So all of the weight was just in my stomach, in my belly, and I was just like, wow, I've been carrying this, right? And with all the, luckily I didn't have too many hormonal shifts. I might have had some food aversions. I remember salmon being one of
Yeah.
them. I'm like, oh wow, how do I not like salmon now? But being in that pool was just one of these things where I just felt something was lifted off of me. And literally, it was somebody carrying the weight with me because I was the only one holding them there. And I just remember bawling. And I think my husband might have even seen me. I was just like standing there being like, this is the first time I feel supported in like a physical manner where it's not just me carrying these girls. Like the water is helping me to stand.
Wow. So, what was your support system other than your husband during this time?
So you know what? It was probably just him because we are not from the area. Our family is far away, right? His is a plane ride. Mine are, from New York, New Jersey, so it's a drive. So it was a lot of us two. And we have some friends too, but it was a very different time to be pregnant with twins without any family nearby.
Yeah. Was that playing into how you felt in that moment?
Probably. And you know why? It's because some of the things I thought about at the time was, well, why did we move to the DC area to begin with, right? And it was, for job opportunities, to be somewhere different. But nobody tells you in training that you're like, if you are planning to have kids, it's good to have your family nearby. And here I am, right, just graduating or, fellowship and not thinking that far ahead, right? Like 5 years, 10 years that, oh, we're going to have a family and need the family support. So it was one of those where I was like, wow, we are literally in a town where we don't know too many people. We're now expecting twins, and we're like, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to get the help that we need? But yes, it's so interesting how even clear that picture is now, 11 and a half, 12 years later, from having been in that pool and just being like, whoa, this is so therapeutic just to cry it out and look back on it now to say, oh, who would have thought that that's what I think and remember from that moment?
Yeah. So, what did your husband do when he saw you?
I think he just let me be.
Yeah.
Yes. It was one of those where, like, okay, we just have to let her, feel the
Yeah.
emotion. But yes, it was definitely something I can't even believe I'm like remembering it, but it was just so clear that, like, oh, that was pregnancy, emotions, and
Yeah.
water.
I'm glad you got it out. And something else that you said that I think was a window into your mindset at that time was the way that your body changed as well, because you said, and not just your body, but your identity. As you said, you went from wearing heels to wearing flats, as, I'm assuming somebody who likes to dress up. I see you now, you
Yes.
look cute in your white clothes. And, having to not dress like yourself. It may seem like something frivolous, but that's who you are, right? That's how you feel good throughout the day. And
Yes.
that I'm sure with twins that quickly went away.
Yes. And it's because now it wasn't about me anymore,
Yeah.
right? So it was, what can I do to prevent any trips or falls or anything? And it was like, well, wearing flats. And they weren't even very cute flats, which normally, now we have Rothy's and all the other
Right,
brands.
right.
Back then, I think it was just like a black, penny loafer or something. I don't know. Not even so cute. But yes, I do see, hear what you're saying, which is the identity went from it's all about me to
Mm,
now what do I have to do to prepare for these girls and have them have a good start, right?
yeah.
Because prior to that, it really is all about you and your spouse or your partner. But now you really have to think more broadly.
Yeah. And so, did you have them vaginally or C-section?
Oh, so actually, they were born vaginally.
Nice.
Yes, and so we were very fortunate in that way. What I do remember about it is that it happened in the middle of the night
Of course.
where,
I'm sure
right?
your team was very happy to have twin vaginal come
And
in overnight.
what happened?
Yes.
Yes, what happened was too was that my husband was sleeping, and it's so funny because we talk about this every now and then, and he actually took an antihistamine that night because he hadn't been sleeping, and I was like, this is he never takes an antihistamine,
Right.
but that night, of course, he did, and so when my water broke, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is it. So I couldn't even get him to be like, hello,
Wow.
hello, wake up. I was like, I think we've got to go. So I'm like yelling from the bathroom, like, it's time. And I could not get him to wake up. So I
Yeah.
actually literally had to get up and like roll him and say, we need to go. Um, and I'm sure other, moms do this, but we had a whole luggage set.
Yeah.
We had the round ball, the exercise ball
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
going to,
Yeah.
right? So this whole thing, we brought it in the car, drove downtown. By the time I got there, I think I was already 7 centimeters.
Wow.
Yes. So it was fast, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I can have an epidural. Because in my mind, I was
Right.
like, oh, I'm gonna do this normal. By the time it started, I was like, oh no, is that why women want this? And I was past, very close to passing the window of getting the
Yeah.
epidural. By the time they actually saw me, but we got it in. And yes, my baby A was born head first, which is why we could do this. And then baby B, her legs were hanging out. My husband was like seeing this and he
Yeah.
remembers
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because she was breech. And luckily
Yeah.
they were able to maneuver her out. And I think I also, attribute a lot of this to prenatal yoga. So I was a big proponent of it. I even still do yoga now, but in order for the babies to be in the right, at least a head down, she wasn't head down in the beginning. And I was like, what can I do to get her head down so we could try to do this? And so all these cat cow poses, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is helpful. And so, luckily, I think all of that helped where we got to the hospital at like 2:30 or 3, and the girls were born at 8 o'clock. So all our stuff that we had brought with us
You
were
didn't need
like,
any of that.
I didn't need any of it. I was like, oh my goodness. But so we were, super blessed that they came out, healthy. And it's almost like the pregnancy part was the easier thing.
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
And then you don't realize, like, whoa, now this is a whole
Yeah.
nother journey.
Now you have two babies. So tell me, you talked
Yes.
about not having the support and the therapeutic nature of that water and feeling the support. What was the plan for support once the girls were there?
So luckily we had thought ahead. So we had interviewed and hired a nanny to start with us. But interestingly, I don't know where I had heard this, if it was from another mom, but somebody had said, it's probably good to have a few days to yourselves
Mm.
without the help of, family, without the help of anybody, so that you can just come up with your own thing. And I thought that was really interesting. Culturally, when my mom ended up coming down that weekend, so 5 or 6 days later, she was a little upset, like, why didn't you have us here in the beginning? And I was like, we just kind of wanted to figure it out without somebody else telling us. But thankfully, since then, it's been support of nannies, preschools, schools and neighbors and babysitters. Like,
Yeah.
so that's what it's like when you're not in your town or
Yeah.
hometown of where your family is. So luckily, we had the support of a nanny shortly after they were born.
Perfect. So when your mom actually came, how long did she stay?
I want to say it was at least a couple days, if not a week.
Oh, short.
Yes, yes. So it was short. It wasn't to stay for a long time.
Okay, and that was because you mentioned culturally, what was her expectation versus what
Oh,
actually
yes.
happened?
I think she may have wanted to be there from
Yeah.
the beginning, like for the birth and coming home. And I can see that for probably when I'm a grandmother, right? Like, I want to be
Yeah.
there for the things. But at the same time, it's a time where we don't get that back. Where we were just figuring out, oh, look, we've got two car seats. Like, we have to put this in the car and then we come out of it. And
Yeah.
now how do we set up our setup? Because, I was breastfeeding, so I had like the
Yeah.
double on both sides with the little, oh, I forgot what it's called, the
The
little,
Bobby?
yes, the bobby. So it was just figuring it out on our own without somebody's own experience, whether it's my mom or his mom,
Hmm.
just allowing us the opportunity to say, okay, this is the world that we've gone into, and allow us together to start making some small decisions in the beginning that would set
Yeah.
us up for a good foundation of how this was going to work out.
I think that is underrated. And coming from me, that's a big deal because I am one who's like have as many hands as possible around at all times. And interestingly, I did not because I had a COVID baby. So I actually understand what you mean about being alone because I never understood the mass of people in the delivery room or postpartum in the hospital. And as an OBGYN, I saw that a lot. Right.
Yes,
And I
yes.
was just like, but why? Why? So I only wanted my mom, and then she couldn't even be there. So we were alone. And I saw some value in that, specifically for what you are saying, because sometimes people can be so overbearing and not even on purpose. They just want to help. And
Yes.
just like, it's a little bit disempowering to not be able to figure out what's best for your babies. So as an interesting take, which I didn't realize how much I agreed with, and it's actually against the advice that I give people, just because it's just like, I feel like the bigger issue is usually I am so overwhelmed. I don't have help. I'm not sleeping and all those things.
Yes.
Yeah. But you had a nice mix, right? It was just a couple days alone. And
Yes.
then you had your support. So I love that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So how was the actual postpartum journey for you?
So it's interesting because a lot of it is a blur,
That sounds about right.
right?
Especially 12 years later.
Yes. But, what I can remember is because actually I went back to work after 5 weeks.
Oh,
And I know, this can range depending on where you're at, but because I'm an allergist and the girls were born in March,
mm,
I was asked to come back in 5 weeks. And, at the same time, I do remember that first day where I was crying. I let them, be with the nanny. And I was like, I can't believe I'm going back. It's like 5 weeks, literally. And my body still had not recovered at all. And even patients were asking me weeks later, like, oh, are you expecting? And I'm like, no, I actually delivered twin girls in March.
dear. I wish we could get to a point where we just stop asking. I found
Yes.
myself asking somebody recently and she's like, no. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, why did I even ask? But yes.
And in thinking about what happened is that it almost forced me to go back to work quickly enough that I could not think about any of the other aspects that could have taken over. Like, because I was back and thrown into pollen season with all my
Right.
patients, I could focus on working during my days and then being at home, being with the girls. And I think I was just, once it started, right, you're just back to work and then this, and then you go home and it's another full time job. That's when I started to recognize, like, okay, this is what it's about.
Mhm.
And even in that early stage, I recognize that there are phases. And only if you can accept, like, this is the current phase we're
Yeah.
in. And that, even for us, and this is the thing where, when I talk to other parents, they can say, oh, we had shifts. I was like,
Mm,
I don't even know what a shift is. Like, that's not even a thing. It was always a team effort, right?
mm,
So we would have our bottles for the night feed. When somebody got up at 2:30 in the morning, we're getting the other one up. And so
right.
he has one daughter, I have the other daughter. We're doing the whole shebang, and then we put them to bed. Then we do the next feeding if it was like at 6 o'clock. So there was always both of us doing this together.
That's wonderful.
So it was great. And at the same time, I'm like, wow, how could somebody do twins on their own,
Right.
right? And because it was really like, how do we do this? But at one point, and this is what I did forget to mention, we did have the support of a night nurse,
Mm,
just a couple nights, maybe in total like 5 or 6 nights, just so we can actually sleep
yeah.
continuously through the night. So we had some, great resources and found somebody who can help us in the early phases. But yeah, so in general, there was just so much going on that it was hard to think about just myself,
Yeah.
which is why caring for patients, caring for my new twin girls, it was just always somebody.
Yeah.
And my husband and I would talk about this where before we walked in the door, we would always have to take a breath and be like, okay, like full-time job number two starts the
Right.
minute we walk in there. And even for him, he told me like he had like ringing in his ears because of whatever was the noise and
Yeah.
all the tinkering toys and sounds. Like he was just like, I remember my ears ringing for the
Yeah.
first.
Oh, he's overstimulated.
Yes, yes, first couple months.
Wow. Wow. So I guess, did y'all have a conversation about that before the girls were born? About, well, we doing this as a team because yes, you had twins, but I feel like there are a lot of marriages where it would have still been all you.
Oh,
So did y'all discuss that, or was it just kind of like, well, no, this is what it's going to be?
you know, I don't even know if we talked about it or if it just became a natural thing because it was almost a lot to be like, okay, I can nurse both, right? But then if you bottle feed one, unless they're on the boppy and you have
Right.
both in at the same time,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
So I don't actually recall us having a conversation. It was almost like the natural instinct
Mm,
was to help. And maybe that's why I didn't feel that I was unsupported because
yeah,
I had him as this, partner to do everything 50-50 with me,
yeah,
excluding the the
right.
breastfeeding
The
part.
actual breastfeeding. And how was breastfeeding for you?
So it was a very memorable experience.
Good
Although
memory?
good memory, good memories.
Okay.
Yes, and my daughters ended up nursing and breastfeeding until like a year.
Oh,
And interestingly, my other daughter, stopped after like 6 or 7 months. So we ended up, pumping and still giving her the breast milk that way. So because they're both individuals, right? So it's
yeah.
almost like even from then we had to recognize, okay, they might have the same birthday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if they still make the pumps, but there was the certain pumps, Medela.
Yeah.
And for those who have pumped, there's a sound when the machine breaks. And
Mm.
it's like, doo-doo-doo. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh no. Like, what does this mean if I can't get this out in a couple hours? Right. So I recall having to drive over to the lactation consultant's house to get
Oh,
another pump. Yes. So I had to, like, get a whole new pump because clearly if I didn't,
right.
express this, it would hurt a lot. So
Yeah.
that I remember actually literally like driving over to somebody's house. They left it on their front porch and then I could swap it out for
I love
the
that
one.
you had that resource, first of all.
Yeah.
Like, we driving to lactation consultants' houses.
And she wasn't there, so she just like left it on her phone. I was like, okay, here we go. And then there we are again. So I don't remember it being a negative experience.
Yeah.
If anything, it was like, wow, this is what people do and what they've done for thousands of
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
So something you mentioned about, caring when you went back to work, you were caring for patients, caring for your daughters, and there was not a whole lot of time or focus on caring for yourself. Now, how did that affect you in that period and then moving on throughout your motherhood journey, if at all?
Yes. So, I think back on it and there was not really any self-care back then. And honestly, it probably wasn't until I started a women physicians coaching program
Hmm.
that that idea even came into my mind. And I did this in 2022.
Okay.
So for the
How old
years
were the girls then?
at that time, so they were born in 2014, so about eight-ish. And yes, so I even think about it, I'm like, what would I do? I think might have been part of a gym, right? To just like go out. But at the same time, because I was working, the only times I could be able to go would be either on a day off if I had that or on the weekends. But that would mean my husband has to take care of the kids. So I do recall, oh, I do remember. I ran a half marathon in 2016, and how that would work would be that anytime I did a short run or long run, my husband would be at home with the girls. At the time, they're not very, maybe they were two-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't that it was too crazy or too, on the infant side of things. But that was, now that I think about that, was my self care. It was
Nice.
just being on my own for short runs during the week and then a long run on the weekends. But that's evolved over the years where I've now recognized, okay, this is what I require, this is what I need in order to be able to be the best version of myself for my family as well as for my patients and my team.